good.
Play the soft music.
Yes.
I don't see. You see anything? Oh, we're live. Well, welcome. Welcome to our 6 o'clock to 7:30 time slot for our next webinar. We are going to talk tonight about leadership during quarantine. And tonight we have the, I like to say, the Honorable Manny Martinez. He is the president of Relentless Leadership LLC. It's part of the Crestcom International network. Manny, welcome. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. It's a pleasure to be here. Just want to thank you and Shelley Willis and the Redefining You Foundation for allowing me to spend some time with you here tonight and talk about leadership during this very unprecedented time in our history and in our world. Thank you, Jenny.
Awesome. Awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's one thing I forget to do all the time because I just get so excited about, having this opportunity to talk to our audience. But I'm Jimmy, Jimmy Wimbley. You're a training development and coordinator. This is awesome because we are going to have a great time talking about some of the things that are going to help you through some tough periods tonight. So just to get things kicking off a little bit, we always like to do, what's going to happen during this webinar. So we're going to talk about some things. Number one, we will ask you questions. We welcome your questions. So please type them out. If you're in Facebook Live, we have a way to get those questions to us. So please let us know what your questions are. Number two, we like to interact our audience as much as possible because we want your feedback. That's how Manny and I operate. And number three, near the end, we're going to set some time for a quick Q&A so we can go through some questions that you may have. And hopefully, like we did with the last webinar, just open it up a little bit and just let you talk. I think that's one of the great things about this webinar. So Manny, one of these things that we kind of brainstorm about the last time, we kind of talked a little bit. We talked about tonight's topic.
Yeah.
So you want to go ahead and lead us into that?
Yes. Thank you, Jimmy. I think before we get started, and I see some people already popping in saying hi. Hi, Elise. I didn't want to not say hi. Thank you for being here. I just want to take just a quick moment just to just talk a little bit about who I am and how I am, why I am here. So again, Manny Martinez, I served in the military for 30 years. I was in the Air Force. And during that time, my main mission in the military was to help grow teams, to develop people to reach their highest potential. In the military, we're very accustomed to helping those people who work with us to gain the toolkit so they can replace us, give them the toolkits for success in leadership. As I left the military, I wanted to find a way to continue doing that service. How do I continue to develop people and grow teams to reach their highest potential? That led me to Crestcom. Crestcom does that. It provides leaders and teams a toolkit to be successful in their organizations, through building their leadership toolkit of particular skills and traits to help them be successful. And so that brought me to Crestcom. Now, my connection with Redefining You is when I was leaving the military, I attended the 2-day workshop, Redefining You.
And you were there.
And I met you, and I met all kinds of wonderful people. And that started this wonderful friendship and relationship with this organization, these fabulous people. And so I'm honored to be here and talk with you here tonight. So I just wanted to kind of give you some background as to who I am and where I come from. And
that's awesome, Manny.
This is kind of my expertise, if you will, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. And Manny, kind of recapping, talking about some of the things that you just said. Believe it or not, Manny and I we actually crossed paths. I think you were transitioning, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. In my previous life, you know, one of those previous things that I was doing, Manny and I kind of we crossed paths, and we actually had this discussion about transitioning out the military. So it's just kind of ironic that, you know, I think it was a whole year later now, 2 years about that we're crossing the same path again. And again, we're both joined by one common denominator, that illustrious CEO that we call Shelly Willis of Redefining You Foundation. You know, it this is awesome just to reconnect with you again and just to see your success since then. So that's awesome, Manny.
Thank you. Hey, Laura, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Laura. You know, I can only see so much, so I'm gonna do my best to read. If I get close like this, I'm trying to read your comments.
Got the hat flip back around so you can see a little better.
I know, right? So, Manny, let's go ahead and dive into some of these topics that we kind of talked about just
Yes.
overall, and that's leadership. You know, during this quarantine period. You know, but you know, a lot of times we try to segregate these pieces and try to just focus. Maybe it's just the military, or maybe it's just the private sector, or maybe it's just the public sector. But we're actually talking overall, because now we also want to incorporate the flip side of this. How do you lead in an environment now that's mostly mobile? And you know, in a case like that. So go ahead, Manny. You know, you can kick this off, and we can go ahead and get into this great conversation and help some of our listeners out there go into this.
Sure. Thank you. You know, this is an unprecedented time in our lives. This is a whole new different world that we are creating every day, to be honest with you. And we can go forward afraid or scared, or we can look at what opportunities the future brings and the opportunities that we can create. That's one of the things about leadership during this particular moment. And more important than ever, strong leadership is required if we are going to be successful in any organization that we are in. You know, whether you're in the private sector, whether you're in the government sector, or in the nonprofit sector, strong leadership will be the key to move people forward and to move teams forward. Let's face it, people are afraid.
Yep.
People are uncomfortable because they're having to deal with new things and new challenges every single day. And they're looking to leaders. They're looking to you and me to be that anchor, to be that strong support to help them work through this particular time and also thrive into the future. So as
Right.
I was thinking about, you know, what to talk about, what areas to discuss tonight, I thought about COVID, and it starts with the letter C.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I was thinking about, what can I talk about that might stick in our minds? And I thought, hey, I'm going to talk about three aspects of leadership, and they all happen to start with the letter C. So these are the
Absolutely.
three C's of leadership in COVID times. And the first C that I want to talk about is probably the most important leadership trait that you could ever have, and that is communication.
Talk
Because,
to me.
yeah, because if you're not an effective communicator, then you're not going to be an effective leader.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
in this particular time, how do we do that? How do we communicate in a way that is effective when we are 6 feet apart, or, you know, screens apart, houses apart,
Right.
buildings and streets apart? How do we do that in a whole new world? And what I want to share is a couple of different tips. And the first
Mm-hmm.
one that I want to share is we need to find simplicity when we communicate. People have a lot in their minds right now.
Yes.
They're dealing with things like, my kids are at home,
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to work with them. They're doing their
Mm-hmm.
homework, and I'm trying to do my job if I'm at home. Or maybe you have a job, but your spouse doesn't.
Mm.
And so in the
Good
back of your
point.
mind, you're thinking, well, I wonder if, you know, if my husband or my wife's going to be gaining employment anytime soon. You're thinking about finances. You're thinking about your health. My brother, for example, he lives in New York City. He is dead smack in the middle of a really, you know, really chaotic moment in that
Absolutely.
history. So that happens to weigh in my mind. When he actually he called me this morning, and as soon as I see his name, I'm picking up, at that moment, what's more important to me, my job or my brother? And at this moment,
Absolutely.
it's my brother, because it might be that something might be going on. Now, he's healthy, he's fine. But those are the things that are going on in people's minds. People have a lot of thoughts right now and a lot of things that are distracting them. So by keeping the communication simple, you're going
Right.
to be able to be more effective as a leader. So keep it simple, simple language. You'll want to increase the frequency of your communications. Let me give you a couple examples. So maybe were used to, prior to COVID, and perhaps now you're working remotely and you're calling in on Zoom calls. Maybe you're used to meeting for an hour long a couple times a week. It might be more effective to shorten those meetings to, say, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and perhaps increase the frequency, check in 3 times a week, just so we can stay on track as to what are the things that we're communicating, what are the things that we want to get accomplished. Because it's very easy for us to, to lose track of what we're talking about, because there's so much that's happening in our lives right now and so many distractions that are around us that we're not used to. And then the third thing that I want you to consider also is in communication. And this particular trait is important whether we're now in a time of COVID or not.
Right.
Transparency. As leaders, we're expected to tell the truth and to be honest with the people who we are asked to lead. That might be something like, I don't necessarily know the answer to your question at this time, but as soon as I have the information, I'm going to get back to you. You'll be the first to know. And if you
You
do
know,
have information, it might be
right.
bad news, but better you share the bad news as soon as you know about them and what might be the way ahead than holding that information back. Because bad news, it's not like old wine, does not get any better over time.
Absolutely, Manny. Absolutely. And Manny, to really add to this conversation about communication, for an example, um, I just got word today that there's going to be a potential hire freeze. Communication surrounding that, and one of those pieces that really resonated with me is, how can we be transparent in a process like that? Because now, guess what? Now, on top of COVID-19, there's a possibility that I might lose my job. And,
Mhm.
how do you have the communications with the spouse that, yes, I'm in a job, but I might be losing that job? Or, talking about, will I qualify for unemployment? All these different pieces. So I definitely right now, communication is very important. And like your brother who is currently in a hot spot, I don't know if you've really been paying attention to the news, but I have family in a hot spot. That's Albany, Georgia.
Yes.
That was like the epicenter for COVID-19 in Georgia. So trust me, I'm on the phone. I was like, hey, what's more important? My mom's calling now, or do I need to be on this conference call? Hey, boss, I need to take this call because my mom don't call right now. You know what I'm saying? This is like for real important. So yes, I totally agree. Get what you're saying about communication. How can we best talk to each other in a simple way to
Mhm.
get a message across so that we can have that information, eventually process it so that we can communicate something back to you. It may be in the form of a body movement, or a posture or whatever. But yes, I get what you're saying about the communication piece. Very important, not just as a leader, but just how you put the message out to be understood as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, Jimmy. When you were, I'm going to ask you something,
Sure.
and I'd also like to hear if people in the audience want to also put in comments to this question as an answer. Is, Jimmy, when you were talking about, the potential of not sure if you're going to have a job, or you have family in a hotspot at this point, what kind of feelings are you experiencing? What kind of emotions? Because this is something that we don't necessarily talk about in communication. There, we bring our feelings and our emotions into our jobs, into our situations. It's not just providing details and
Hmm.
facts. There are feelings and emotions that are also being talked about, right?
Right, right. Hey,
So
Jerry, we see you.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What is that, what's that experience been like for you as far as, what emotions you're feeling? How are you experiencing that?
You know what? It's ironic that we're sitting up here talking about emotions. But first off, I think it's a for us men, we don't like to talk about our emotions because you always get associated with being weak because you can't take it, you can't get out there, you can't handle it. And I think that is just the biggest bunch of old way of thinking. I can't really say it because we're live and this is a family show. But for real, times have changed. Times have completely changed. And the level, as a man in a household who has a family, you are expected to be the provider.
Mhm.
When that main piece is starting to get cut from under your legs, what do? We go like this. What's wrong with you? Nothing. What are you doing? Thinking. That's our common answer because we are not trained to talk about truly what's going on with us because there is an expectation, societal expectation that we must, hold the line.
Mhm.
And my emotions as that we got to learn to start talking about these things because if you have a spouse, that spouse is designed to be your partner, which means
Mhm.
there is a partnership in that union, and you should be able to help each other get through that.
Yeah.
So as but yes, I do have a swirl of emotions when I think about crisis like this. I am accrediting most of that to my military training on how I handle that, but I still depend on being able to let it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that and for being open to that. I love some of these comments that are coming in. Jerry talked about your approach is defining separation of leading through a crisis versus managing a response. Communication is imperative.
Yes,
Absolutely. And Laura's son says, Amen. Times are changing and people are challenged to manage their emotional IQ. Um, you know, Emotions were always part of where we were if we were at work or we were at home. One of the great things, because I think it's a positive thing through this particular period, is that we have to talk about them because they are out there.
absolutely.
People were taught, and us military guys, us
Yes,
men especially, we were told to just keep that at home and show up, and if you
yes.
don't show your emotions, keep that under wraps. Well, we can no longer just hide those thoughts. We
Yes,
have to discuss them. We have to make it safe for people to express what they are feeling, to
absolutely.
communicate what's going
Absolutely.
on. And as leaders, we have to be receptive to that, and we have to show the level of empathy that they are looking for. People are dealing with a lot of different things, and they all involve feelings and emotions. So, it's
Absolutely.
great that we're able to have this conversation because we can't just hide the emotions and just have conversations that don't ask those questions. How are you feeling about what's happening? how are you how are you coping with that? I mean, how are and I'm going to ask this to the people who are listening here tonight and on Facebook Live as well, or if you're not on Zoom, what are some of the ways that your team has adjusted to communicate with
Yes.
each other during this time? I'd like to know so we can share this with the audience. I don't pretend to have all the answers to all things, and so I know there are wonderful things out there. There are some great ideas out there of teams that are thriving through this time. If you have something you want to share, please do so.
We want you to do that because right now, this is what this platform is all about. We are in the moment of sharing so that we can continue to grow. So if you got those great ideas, put them in the comments. I really wanted to read this one because I thought this one just kind of resonated with a lot of transitioning service members that I talk with. And Laura, if you don't mind me reading this, um, she said, as a woman in maintenance, I am stressed about entering the civilian maintenance world. I worry that it will be worse than what I experienced in the military. So, you know, being out here in this world, Laura, for, you know, I am in HR, you know, I like to attribute my background to helping a lot of the veterans grow. Um, I would tell you this about us as veterans. We are resilient and we are consistent. And those were those two pieces that got a lot of us, you know, where we are at today. Um, and you just have to remember that you did not achieve what you did in the military without scruffing, you know, messing up them elbows and them knees and a little bit. But look at you now. I always like to remind them that this world and what you went through, they are not used to that. Like when this first kicked off for us, when COVID-19 kicked off for us who have been in the military, who have deployed, who got that type of background, this is like, oh, okay, Iraq 2003 kicking off. What is the unknown? We were scared at first, right? Because we went to a country we had nothing about. So we got introduced to a virus that we don't know nothing about. But the training that's behind us allow us to remain calm throughout the situation so we can assess and determine the next course of action. Assess and determine the next course of action. So I, you know, for that comment, Laura, I appreciate that because it's a very open comment, and you're not the only veteran that I have spoken to that had that exact same fear. But I just remind you, your leadership from what you had in the military is a big part of who you are now, and it matters right now. You are, you will be the calm in the storm. I promise you that.
All right. Jimmy, oh, sorry, touched my phone over here and it kind of popped up. Distractions. I was going to talk about that next.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk about, we've been talking about communication, and thank you for sharing, you know, people in the audience, thank you for sharing your comments. Yeah, this is a moment where if we had particular areas that we were struggling with as people or as organizations, I think this time has really highlighted and put it to the front. Um, as leaders, we need to look at ways that we can collectively find positive ways to, you know, to move ourselves and our teams forward. I wish that everybody will be able to do that. And so part of this conversation is to perhaps help us, you know, find some ways that we can make that happen, right?
Absolutely.
In our world.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about the second C that I thought of when it comes to leadership that I'd like to talk about. And this is something that we're all experiencing, and that is change, right? Show of hands, you
Change.
know, who's experienced change recently? Like the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago or an hour ago. It seems like that. It seems like we're constantly going through so many changes, and very often they're the kinds of changes that we didn't expect. We
Right.
didn't see coming. Yes, it seems like all the time. It's, you know, we change and then we adapt and then we get another change. There are many changes that are occurring, whether it's people that we work with or perhaps in our homes, in our jobs or lack of jobs, many different changes. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
touch on a few of those. You know, the first one is we're all, for the most part, kind of living in some new surroundings. Many of us
Yes.
are spending more time at home. If you're working from home, that's a particularly new surrounding for you. And as leaders, if you are in a team and you're responsible for people and they're working from home, a question you may want to ask is, how am I providing the tools my team needs to be able to work effectively from home? I know this might seem a little bit um, picky or, you know, highbrow, but I like dual monitors. And when I was at work, I had dual monitors.
I
Maybe,
don't live without them.
you know, maybe the person is used to dual monitors and now they're kind of struggling a little bit because they don't have dual monitors. If you're an organization, that might be a conversation point. Hey, do we need to outfit our team with additional tools at home? get dual
Yes.
monitors for them, or do they have enough, of the technology to be connected with us? One of the
Yes.
things is we lose a little bit of who we are as people when we can't see them on the screen, and already we lose a little bit of it even when you see them on the screen. It's hard, right, to stay connected and to have the right tools to do an effective job. Another thing with that is because we're in different surroundings, or maybe we are at work, but then we have to be 6 feet apart from other people, or
Hmm.
perhaps ensconced in another room. That affects our productivity. And Jimmy and I had talked about this last week when we were just having an initial conversation. I don't know about you, but many of you guys that are former military or still military, we're so used to getting it done, right?
Yep.
It's like, yeah, checking off the box of all the things that we're doing all day, and we walk out,
Check.
yeah, right, and
I'm
tomorrow
good.
20 more things, yes. Well, now there's so many different distractions, whether it's, you don't have the right tools, or, you know, you don't, you have distractions because now you're at home, and your kids need you for something, or you need to stop because you may have somebody asking you a question, or the phone rings. So now you have
Yes.
additional distractions that are
Yes.
happening. And for me, I love that some people say, I've got this extra time in my hands because I don't have to drive an hour and a half to get to work. But before, we had the ability to parse the work time and the home time, and now it's all combined. So
Yes.
how are we working through that? And one of the things that I like to suggest is, if you're that kind of person who loves just putting 10,000 items on their to-do list and getting them done by the end of the day, you may want to crunch that down
Dial
a
it
little
back.
bit, right? Dial it back a little bit, and ask that question: is this something that really needs to be done, or is it something
Yes.
that can wait? And try to focus and narrow down, to the things that you truly need to do, because you're going to be distracted. You're going to be not perhaps at your optimum in some situations. I'm not saying that applies to everybody, but it potentially can apply to the people that you work with your peers or your employees, your subordinates. Have that in mind when you're
Right.
working with them, and having that clarity, what I mentioned earlier in communication, as to what we expect to do and what we're going to do, is going to help keep them focused to do the things that you expect them to do. But if you put a lot on their plate when they're having to tutor their kids, when they're having to do other chores because they're at home,
Hmm.
that could be a challenge.
Now, I think you highlighted it very well last week. You said realistic expectations.
Mhm.
I was like, that was so spot on. I like Eve last comment. She said, no boundaries. And trust me, I do understand that. I can literally wake up, roll out of my bed, and I'm in my workstation.
Yeah.
And that is not the way I really envision telework.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do get that. And you know what, Manny, to really talk about another piece that we kind of highlighted last week. I brought this topic up because I see it in so many veterans, and even in myself when I transition, because as leaders, and when we had the uniform on, it was usually our way or the highway. Just be honest. That's how it usually was. But one of the things I really had to adjust to was releasing control,
Mm.
because you know if you stay control, that change piece that we're kind of talking about right now, it becomes very difficult, which can flow into that transition piece, make transition much harder, because we are so used, like you said, waking up, going, going, going. But the problem is, in this world, it doesn't happen like that. You literally will have to stop and pause and allow whoever it is that, whatever you're doing, to try to catch up with you, so that way now you can get your momentum back. And yeah, it is a big transition problem that
Yeah.
I experienced personally, that kind of slowed down the portion that I needed to get used to, and that was change.
Yeah. Yeah. And Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jimmy. Yeah, we're so used to just going and going and going. And
Yes.
you had a battle rhythm, and Jerry talked about you can't telework to the battlefield, right? I love that.
That's funny.
It
I
changed.
love that too.
So your battle rhythm has changed. And for me,
Yes.
you can minimize distractions if you're at home or you're working from a different location. You can find a space where you can be in the office, right, away from other things, and then that way you have a separated barrier, you have a
Hmm.
door. I had that until last week. My daughter came home and I was borrowing her room. Now she's home, so I'm downstairs, and across the way,
Daughter kick you out your
I've got the
room.
open kitchen. Okay, so then I'm turned around here in my little office space working, and I was telling this to Jimmy last week. I'll give you a personal example. Last week, my main job, according to some people here in my house, was to wash my dog.
I knew it. I knew
And it was
it.
important. And it was important. I mean, the dog needed a wash. I mean, it was important. But it's funny because I'm being military. I'm thinking, I'm working at this. I'm getting this done. Checklist items going. Boom, 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 boom. And then
Yep.
suddenly I get you need to wash dog today, right? And if I was Chief Martinez, back in the day, I would have gone like, I think I'm going to go close the door. And then when I do wash my dog, I have a white dog with brown spots. That dog's going to come out so clean. You're
I
not
don't
going to
need you to
get
remind
any
me.
spots. And the dog, really white after that, right? And then I can just go open the door and yell at a couple of airmen, and then I feel good. Well, you can't do that. You
No.
can't do that. You have to be able to minimize the distractions that you can. As Laura said, focus on what you can control, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And
Absolutely.
focus on the
Absolutely.
things that you cannot control. Thank you for sharing that. And then when it comes to change, we also have to think about what's our mindset in the
Yes.
in the
Yes.
scenario of me washing my dog, which I did, and she came out pretty clean. Now she still has her spots. I didn't, right? In that scenario, what's your mindset? What's your
Absolutely.
approach? How are you responding instead of reacting to the changes that are around you? Many of those changes, they just are because they are.
Yes.
But
I love.
we can complain about them. We can fight
Yes.
about them. We can get
Yes.
mad and angry about them. Um, but is that really the best way? And if you are in a position of leadership where people are looking up to you, where people are expecting you to be that anchor, that calm in the storm, if your mindset is angry, if your emotional intelligence is not really in a good place, that sends a message to the rest of your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I constantly have to remind people, and uh, it's kind of in that change area. I had to actually coach one veteran through a interview process. So the conversation, and I'm going to show the relation to this about that attitude piece that you're talking about, Manny. She was just coming. Oh, I hate my job. I hate this, and I hate that, and I hate
Mhm.
this. And I sat up there for about 15 minutes just talking about. She just saying, spewing like, oh, I mean, she was like really angry. And I say, let me see your resume. And I read her resume, and I asked her, a couple of interview questions, and she's like, "Well, I'm just not getting anything," and da 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 da. And I had to remind her. I said, "When I say the only thing I've heard you say this night was how much you hate everything. You never said anything about what you're good at, or what you grew today, or how you grown. It's
Mhm.
just you're just spewing your anger." And I say, believe it or not, that mindset that you're in right now is written in your resume, and it is reflected in your interview, because you can't hide body language. You
Mhm.
may come in the room and smile, but you can't hide. I think Laura said it's energy. It's about energy. You cannot hide that energy. And I say, you need to just go and take some downtime and get yourself back in the place of where you need to be.
Mm,
She ever since then, she took that advice and she got another position, been happy ever since. So sometimes being reminded of that mindset that you're talking about, Manny, is a reflection of what's going to come out of you physically.
mm,
People will not follow a leader who is floundering.
yes.
You may sit up here and say, no, we're good, but you're jittery and you're kind of, ooh, I've seen those people, and I wouldn't follow you nowhere, not behind the door.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct with the mindset piece. It is a reflection of who you are right now at the particular time, and being able to resolve and go to your place of calm so that
Mhm.
you can present calm is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. And I think that's, that's great. I think what you're bringing up is we're gonna have moments where we're gonna have to self-assess where we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it seemed like you helped that person self-assess because she found an avenue where she was happier. This is the moment of self-assessment. This is a moment of great opportunity. Now, I'm not here to tell you what success looks like for you,
Absolutely.
just that this is a moment for us to stop and to reflect and go, where am I as a person? What is my mindset? How am I looking at this scenario? Am I able to find the opportunities, to move myself and to move those around me forward?
Right. Right.
And I would also say be patient with yourself, because everything happens so quickly and so drastically that you might have from one moment, you might feel in a good frame of mind, and then 2 hours later, you can get a little rattled.
Hmm.
Give yourself the space, give yourself the patience. I'm an impatient person, even though I seem patient, but internally, I'm very impatient. And sometimes I don't give myself the space to look at something and to digest it. And that sometimes turns out by me reacting in ways that are not positive, right?
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
where are we displacing that? And especially us guys, us men,
Yes.
like we were talking about earlier. Oh, what's going on?
Yes.
Nothing, everything's fine. Sometimes we don't displace that very well. It comes out
No, we
by
do
us
not.
shouting at somebody or getting angry at something, and that's not a healthy way for us to deal with it. And what I'm
No.
saying is, give yourself that grace that you're going to have moments where you're going to have to stop and go, I need to reassess. I
Absolutely.
need to really look at this, and that's a healthy thing to do. It's a positive thing to do. You're going to be in that moment. What is our response to what's happening
Absolutely.
around us? So then we
Absolutely.
respond in a positive way.
Absolutely. And that's very important, man. I'm glad you made that point about, us men. Is we don't have to have the answers right then and there, but take the time and pause. Like you said, give yourself some grace. Actually, I spoke on that one Thursday. Go back and listen to it. But give yourself some grace, because you will face a multitude of things and you just won't have the answer right now. But as soon as you slow down and allow the calm to just settle in you, you'd be surprised at all the ideas that starts flourishing again. I totally agree with you on that. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you on that. Great point.
Yeah. I'd like to ask the audience, and please feel free to provide some comments in the chat, or send them in. I'm kind of curious. Many of us are at home, spending more time at home, working from home. How are you managing? How are you minimizing some of the distractions that might be coming at you? Or
Hmm.
what habits have you been able to develop? What practices you are following to help you keep in a positive mindset? Again, we want to be able to provide as many different things to our audience here tonight. I certainly don't have all the answers. I'm still learning, which is a great place to be because I know there's
Yes.
always room for improvement. So I'm happy to learn from you. So please,
Yes.
by all means, share what you see might be working. Ask questions if there's something that we can help you with as well, and perhaps provide some insight.
Uh, I think we got one already. This is from Lloyd. Oh, she said, I've been avoiding social media, except for now. Good for you.
These are the good moments of
Good for
social
you.
media. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good point. I
Mhm.
even, my routine before all of this COVID, the presidency and all that stuff kicked off. I used to wake up every morning. CNN was just part of my daily habit of catching up what's going on in the world. Now it is just, I used to catch the nightly news, King Five. Everybody watches King Five or something, and just to say, okay, this is what's going on in the world. Now totally cut it out. It is just so negative. So it's like when you start watching it, you could just feel your soul just draining out of you.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had to just back away from it, get a couple of highlights and then say, hey, I have to, cut myself off from that. I could feel myself just being drained from that negative news
Mhm.
all the time, all
Yeah.
the time.
So how are you feeling? How are you feeling that time now, Jimmy, that you've cut out some of that negativity?
Well, I think it's very important. One of my things that I do, Manny, is I was an avid reader at one point in my life. Fortunately, the military just made me read too many regulations. I kind of stopped. I started hating reading again.
What, you read
So
regulations? Oh, that's
I,
right.
I
You were in Air
well,
Force.
I'm in HR. I'm in HR. I had to read them. So, but just getting back to, I think what was important for me was I tapped back into the guy that joined before he joined the military. I was that guy that would get in my truck and just go riding, just
Mhm.
no destination. Get there and I think I'm there and turn around and go at home. And but I worked in a library in my previous life, so I was always surrounded by knowledge and books, magazines, whatever. So that was just a big part of my life. And since I cut the news out, I just allowed myself to get back into reading. I
Yes.
read more online articles now, of
Mhm.
course, but I do read more now, and I think that's just. I was like, man, this was actually very relaxing, and it just helps me enjoy who I am right now,
Right.
and tap back into that person I was before the military.
Yeah.
You asked me all these questions. What about you? What do you do?
Oh, I forgot. You're supposed to be interviewing me. Okay.
I know, right?
You know, I like some of the things that people are commenting on, and maybe you
I
can respond
see. I see him. Yeah.
later, Jimmy. I was always the kind of person that minimized screens to begin with.
Mm,
I don't watch cable news. I don't. I try to just the minimum amount that I do on social media, mostly just to share things from my business perspective or personal things. But I don't mindless scroll through feeds. I
awesome.
and I had a very good morning routine prior to this. I would wake up, and the first thing I would do is that I would spend time, an hour, in prayer and meditation. You
Good.
know, right? Prayer is that conversation, and then
Hmm.
the meditation is the listening part, right?
Absolutely.
Room
Absolutely.
to speak,
Absolutely.
and then room to listen.
Yes.
And then after that, I would go to the local Y and get my workout. Well, the Y is closed, so what I do is that
Hmm.
I get out of my house and I walk 5 minutes to the back of the middle school right down the street, and I
Hmm.
do a workout there. So I can
Nice.
keep that routine going, and it's in the morning, and it's fresh air, and it's quiet, and the birds are singing. It's beautiful. I get to watch a sunrise over the soccer field. Uh,
Nice.
and then I come back and I do some journaling and a little bit of reading. So by the time 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning rolls around, I've
Gotcha.
taken care of myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I've continued to do that during this time. Now, again, there's been some mornings where I go, it's raining and the birds are singing. Maybe we want to spend another 20 minutes in bed before I roll out. I don't make a habit out of it, but I've done it a couple of times to enjoy the birds singing. You know, don't have a purpose, but just to love listening to the birds. I'm going to hang out for
Absolutely.
minutes. That's okay. Um, but I just, I'm reminded when you were talking about, the information that you are feeding your mind. I'm reminded of what Jim Rohn said, stand
Mm,
guard at the door of your mind.
that's I heard that. That's nice.
Stand
I do
guard
remember that.
at the door of your mind. And what I'm seeing in these comments, avoiding social
Yes.
media or taking walks or just, shutting down, you know, you know,
I like Ellen's comment and gospel music. Ellen, I'm with you. I
yes.
love I love my Kurt Franklin.
Mhm. Reading books,
Yes,
self-reflecting, yeah, protect your gates. There you go. The same thing. Stand guard
absolutely.
at the door of your mind. It's
Yes,
extremely critical for us to do that. And again, give
yes,
yourself the grace because once in a while you might get a little shaky. Well, you're a human being.
absolutely.
We're all humans. And if you didn't have emotions sometimes that you needed to, to notice, you would not be a human being, and I'd probably be a little concerned about you. You know, right? It just
Robot. I am a robot.
if you're feeling a little angry or anxious or
Yeah.
um, or just feeling a little uneasy,
Hmm.
when that happens to me, I ask the question, what is this trying to tell me?
That's that's good. That is so good. I'm sorry. I just got goose chills just thinking about it. Because believe it or not, people don't understand that I have I was diagnosed with anxiety,
Mm,
I'm sharing this because I think it's important. Most man, we ain't gonna come out and say, yeah, I was depressed. I was, we're not gonna do that. So if I have to represent and be the first one to say it, yep, I know what depression is. I've actually walked out when I was in the military in front of my unit, was on the phone with my spouse, and I just broke out. I just broke down, literally right there, broke, just broke me. So I know what anxiety, depression, I know all of that. I experienced it. And when you're talking about guarding the gates of your mind, I so believe that wholeheartedly, because what you feed in you is what you're going to get out of you. And
mhm,
I had to learn to protect my little sanity that I had from everything that was causing me negativity or that was wanting me to be angry, um, frustrated, all these different pieces because I'm also an overthinker. I did a lot of research on me when I got out. You know,
good for
when
you.
you when you overthink things, it just runs in your mind and just replays over
Mhm.
and over again. And each time you're trying to figure out what could I have done better, or if I would have done it this way, there you just gonna have to do it, and just hope that it's the right way. If
Mhm.
it's not, then it's like going back and practicing for a track team. You get back on the track and you just try again. So
Mhm.
that's how I actually had to condition my mind to say, this is not the bad way, it's just a different way.
Ah,
Yeah. And,
yes.
and you would, and I've spoken to many veterans about resume writings. They want to compare their resumes to mine. I say, you're not me. I have to tell them that you are not me. You are excellent as you are. We are just excellent at different things.
Yes.
And so I have to really put that in their minds about this piece of who they are, so that they can remain. I want to remain, keep them whole,
Hmm.
because they haven't even hit the transition process yet.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. That's another webinar.
I love
But
that.
it's a beautiful thing when you can have these discussions with these different people and talk about, yes, I've been there. And I had so many veterans like, well, I thought I was crazy. No, you're
Yeah.
not.
Thank you.
You're not.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's wonderful. I love that. We had talked about on Friday, and before we kind of move on to that third C, because we're still talking about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to in a moment where hiding emotions is really effective. Um, and as leaders, having the vulnerability to share things like what you've shared, being able to talk to our teams and go, I don't have the answers.
Absolutely.
right? I'm not sure, or this is what I'm experiencing, right? Showing
Yes.
your little bit of humanity. You're not, you're not an island. You're not expected to know everything. Although you and I know, Jimmy, that in the military we put on that persona very
Hmm.
often of
Very
we
often.
had the answers to everything. We knew the solutions to the problems.
Hmm.
It was hard for us to go, no, I don't know all the answers, no, I don't know exactly how's this going to go, but together we can find out. Or I'm
Yes.
willing to learn, I'm willing to step out of that comfort zone of knowing everything,
Yes.
of being able to give the answer right away. There's a
Absolutely.
vulnerability there that people want to connect with.
Yes.
I had a similar experience to that. My About 2 years before I retired from the Air Force, I was in my 28th year, and it's not a it's not an older person's game. The military usually,
No.
youth is good, right? And I was really struggling that year with my arthritis. I mean, I was going to physical therapy because it
Hmm.
was just that painful, and that was really causing a lot of issues for me, emotional issues as well, because
Yes.
it was like I felt wounded. I felt like I wasn't
Yes.
barely being able to contribute the way I wanted to. And at that time, we had in our organization, in our unit, some different issues that have been going on with our airmen.
Yes.
Whether there were spouse issues in disputes, domestic violence that occurred. We had a couple of instances where we had people that had suicidal ideations.
Mm.
So here I am, chief, and it's the next commander's call, and I have to address these things. I know that I
Hmm.
have to, but how do I do it with the empathy and the vulnerability, of a leader who is trying to connect with his team? Because at the end of the day, I don't want these things to go on, but I can't sit there and go, you need to blah 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 blah, and you guys need to shape up and fix your
Suck it
man,
up and drive on.
right? And knife hand, right?
The knife hand.
The knife hand. You can't do that. So what I did was, I just shared about me.
That's
I told them the
perfect.
story of the struggles that I was having. I didn't want them to think I was invincible. These are the struggles that I'm having. These are the issues that I'm going through. And so that, for me, everybody is dealing with something at
Yes.
any particular time. And to have
Yes.
the empathy to understand that and to lean on each other, to help each other in our moments of struggle, because tomorrow it might be another person that you need to help and have them lean on you. That was something that I wanted to share with them. And it felt like so much more of a human way of connecting with them than telling them what to do, or
Absolutely.
trying to come across as I've got my stuff together. Let me tell you how you don't. You know
Yeah.
that approach right now is extremely useful
Hmm.
because we're all going through all these changes.
Man, I'm going to give you another C if you don't mind. So everything you just talked about, we're going to label that connection. We're going to
That's
label that one
awesome.
connection.
That
You
is
know,
awesome.
that is one of the biggest. I had to. That's probably the first um, piece of human interaction that I had to learn as a leader. Um, uh, if anybody has ever done recruiting duty,
Mm.
you gotta, like Jerry just mentioned, humility. Laura mentioned a couple of them too, where she talks about being real.
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why I was probably so successful, because if you can't connect with that population of people and come out of the uniform, even though you're in the uniform, come out of the uniform and show I'm just a person just like you. This was my avenue to become successful,
Mhm.
and just share your story, which is the first thing they teach you in that school. It's just share your story. And that's exactly what you were talking about. That you sharing your story, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, at that point, allow them to be receptive and open up so that, hey, maybe he's not a bad guy after all. So if you a man out there, be vulnerable. It's okay. You get a heart. You got a heart. It's okay. But on the real, I think you had a very good point about connection. It's simply just connection and you sharing this very important part of you that you feel may be relevant to this person so that you can connect with them and then hopefully get them to the point of where they need to be. So I think that's just, that was just a great example. It really was.
Hmm. Thank you. I'm glad we got a bonus C into that. Wonderful. Yes. And it is important. We have to be able to connect even more so. And it goes back to the communication piece and it goes back to the mindset piece.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You might have to be creative in connecting with people, sharing your story, like you mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
We all have stories in our lives that we look back and go, these were moments that shaped my character and that shaped me who I am as a human being. How can I help other people through that, through their
Yes.
experience, and know that I'm there with them. That connection is extremely important. I love the comments that are coming through, by the way. This
I
is
know, right? They're
wonderful.
awesome. I can't even keep up with them. They're coming in so quick.
Yeah, this is great. So I want to talk about that third C, or should I say the
Absolutely.
3.5, I guess, I don't know, 3.5 C, um, because we've got so much going on. We want to make sure that we get more of this good stuff from you guys out there in the audience. Thank you for being so gracious and sharing. Um, so we talked about communication, we talked about change, we talked about connection as
Yes.
well, and I want to talk about culture.
Mm, that's a good one. Oh
I
yeah,
want to
that's a
talk
real
about
good
culture
one.
because COVID has exposed an organization's culture for better or worse.
Yes,
And
it does.
again, this
Yes.
is an opportunity for us to pause and to look at that and go, where's our culture today? If it's not the culture that we are proud of, this gives us an opportunity to look at what is the culture that we can shape? What is the culture that we can create moving
Yes.
forward? And I would
Yes.
say as well, again, as leaders, don't think that you've got to figure it all out yourself. You've got to come up with all the answers yourself. You have a team. Your team should be part of that process. You hired them anyway, you work with them anyway, they're part of your team. They should be the ones with you to build the framework for the culture that you want to have in your teams, in your organizations. I'll give you some examples. And many of you are familiar with the things that are happening right now, where you hear these wonderful stories of companies and businesses that have pivoted their products and their
Absolutely.
services to give to those who are in need. We stopped making whiskey and we're making hand sanitizer,
Hand sanitizer. Yep.
or we
Absolutely.
build vehicles and now we're building ventilators.
Yep.
It's, to me, that speaks more of their culture than of the
Yes.
product itself. Because
Absolutely.
if you just in it for the product, okay, well, it's going to take you so far. But think about somebody in there had to have the concept of, we have a culture where we have a greater calling than just a product, than just a
Mm-hmm.
service. And that
Mm-hmm.
allowed them to look at themselves and go, what can we do? Right.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and so if you're in a situation right now where you're in a team that may be struggling at their culture identity, this is the moment. This is the moment to look at it and go, where do we want to go? What are
Absolutely.
our values? What do we stand for? How do we want to be remembered?
Absolutely.
What kind of legacy do we want to leave?
Absolutely.
This is that moment.
Yes.
This is that
You
moment.
yes. And one of those good things about the culture right now and identifying companies, because you may be a leader in an organization right now, And what was brought to you during the interview and during your time that you're there, you may be seeing something different now because you are now mobile working. The environment is different and it's not what you actually thought it was. So a good thing that's going to drive you back now is, those other two topics. And we're going to start with the change first, because now you see this and how you're going to communicate that. Because either you're going to be talking to yourself about, I need to change, or communicating with your team about how we can effectively maneuver through this. So I think that's a great point about the culture, because a lot of, for an example, I just seen it on the news this morning where Google is, most of their employees are going to be mobile working now for the rest of the year. It's changing. What's going on right now is changing the landscape of how we hire, how we entice employees to stay. COVID-19 is literally changed the scope of businesses, period. Public, private, let's go ahead and put it in there too, the military as well.
Yes.
It's completely changed the scope of how we are conducting our daily business. And it's probably going to be like this for this is probably the change, the pivotal point right now in time for the rest, forever. Nobody expected one disease to come in and do so much devastation, because that's exactly what it's doing across all party lines. So if you hated them, they all fighting the same enemy now. It's called COVID-19. So that's an excellent point, man. Excellent point. Culture is going to be a driving factor in your leadership stance right now, period.
Yeah.
And how you move forward is going to be determined by that culture for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And all great points. It's affecting all aspects, right? And there's nobody who is spared from this situation. And so you have to look internally and go, okay, where do we want to go as a team? What is that going to look like? What values do we possess? Which values do we aspire? What's going to be our character as an organization? Once you do that, then there's a whole different set of things that you have to keep in mind, such as you have to be accountable as a leader to model the behavior and support it.
By example.
Starts with you, right? Like, we shouldn't have to say that. We shouldn't have to, but you do, because again, sometimes we become overwhelmed. We get lost in the weeds of things. It's very easy to lose sight of that. Are you accountable? Is there someone that can keep you accountable? Who's your anchor, your accountability partner, right?
Yes.
Who's that wingman? Who's that battle buddy? Who's that person that's going to make sure that you are staying in the bumpers, and when you're going stray a little bit, they gently bring you back in? Who's going to do that for you?
Absolutely.
And are you doing the same for your anchor, for the team that you're working with, for the employees who are following you? It starts with you. You might do it effectively as a team, and then you embrace that and you model that behavior.
Yes. I'm gonna read this one to you, Manny. This is from Jerry Burks. Looks like it maybe from the Facebook Live feed. Shaping a culture is a formidable task. Emotional maturity, unthought, and excuse me, I cannot say this. I'm so tongue-tied tonight. Authenticity and a strong character are all essential if leadership in a culture-driven company is to be effective. That's true. That is. I can't argue with that. I used to believe, and this is, the young naive Jimmy, that one person can make a difference. Yeah, okay. Now what I go in and preach is the organizations that I serve. Then I say lead with the head. Whatever the head goes, the tail is going to follow. And once I put in a very plain concept like that, I was just talking to a veteran yesterday. I say, you might not be in the leadership position, but you have leadership influence. So if you are that type of person that can effectively inspire a leader to the right course of action, you have indirect
Yeah.
influence in leadership. I've done it in my own organization, but I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because I want that leader. I see something in them that I know that they can go to the next level. So in my mind, how I effectively help this leader, because the idea is win-win situation. That's how we form collaboration, win-win situation. How can I effectively help this leader to get them to the place that they need to be for their business?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I formulate that leadership piece as far as growing that culture. If I can come to the leader and say, hey, this is what's going on. Here are a couple of recommendations. You may have some. I would just ask that you run them by me so that way we can make sure that we're A, B, and C, and I can make sure that you are being the example of what your subordinates should be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I pitch it to them, as far as that indirect influence piece is concerned. So
Right.
yes, it is a formidable task. I totally agree with Jerry on that point, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, thank you. So great stuff, Jimmy. And I believe that this moment's also giving us the awareness that we have those leaders within our organization, not just the person at the top, right?
Absolutely,
That
absolutely,
they are influencing, that they are helping move things forward, right?
absolutely.
That they are really helping all of us be accountable and to move things in the direction we want them to move. And sometimes that direction, if not guided properly, could be going the wrong way, or could be going in
Absolutely.
a very negative.
Absolutely.
So that's it's going to take all of us, and I think as leaders, just having the humility to be able to reach out to our teams and to help
Absolutely.
create that culture, but we model it, we support it, and we also take time to recognize that there are people among us and there are situations that are happening in our organizations that are the positive fruits of that culture that we are shaping. When
Right.
we see people
Right.
who are doing the kinds of things that are in line with the values that we have, we need to recognize that.
Yes.
We need to
Yes.
acknowledge that. We need to be able to show that, whether it's during a group meeting, acknowledging something someone did. What did they do? How did they do it? What they did, how did it affect the team, the organization, our overall culture? We need to talk about
Right.
those things. We need to
Right.
acknowledge those things. And that
Right.
helps continue to shape our culture, to reinforce our culture. It's great to see when you see the culture in an organization that is carried on by the person that you first meet when you walk in through the door. And
Absolutely.
there's tons of organizations out there in the world where you walk in and talk to, your front counter employee, your front desk employee, and just by the way that that person interacts with you,
Yes.
you might as well think, I'm talking to the CEO.
Absolutely.
I'm talking to
Absolutely.
the president of the company. To be fair, they are the representation the
Bingo.
president, the CEO, the entire organization. So you have to be able to recognize that when you see and you have people who are driving that culture in the way that you've decided this is where we're going to go. You have to stop
Absolutely.
and recognize it.
I read one of the comments. RYF had this comment. So I don't know who's RIF, right? RYF, excuse me, right now, but it said leadership at all levels. That is so true. You know what the best thing a leader can do for his subordinates, his or her subordinates, is called empowerment. Empower them. Give them the reason, because empowering builds trust. And so, totally agree with you on that point too. A matter of fact, that is a very important point, because I have seen entire organizations get destroyed because one individual come in, and if there is trust, not no trust in one, it will destroy the entire team. So everybody has to have their part into building first that team, and then that team is going to be like, that's my leader. I will follow them across the sand. I will follow them over here. And then it just rolls up after that. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. But your leadership from the top can't be putting out a message and they're going out doing something different, which I have seen before too. That
Yeah.
will destroy an organization as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely have some great points out there.
Yeah. I'd like to hear from the team that's there either on Zoom or on Facebook Live. How has been your organization? How has it been affected by COVID? What kind of things are you doing that you see are positive things that are occurring that's shaping your culture? Love to hear, love to read some of those
Yeah.
comments that you have. Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. Do what you say you would do. Lizzie with
Yes.
the palindrome talks about. If we are going to walk the walk and talk the talk, we've got to be able to be able to show that, and
Absolutely.
we can do that more through our actions. And once in a while, we can use words. If I'm paraphrasing St. Francis a little bit there, but it's really vital that we do that, because then other people see that,
Yes.
and so when you see other people that are modeling those behaviors, then I'm going to be looking at and going, okay, this is something that we believe in. I'm going to do the same as well. And I understand why I want to do that. But if the leader is not
Yes.
doing that, then I can't trust the leader. Maybe it's
Yes.
not that important. Maybe it doesn't really matter at all. And then that
Yes.
distrust bleeds into other aspects.
Yes. Yes. Jerry just posted of something. The culture must be conducive to growth and reinforced through accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, accountability will get you so far, because either it's going to get you on track to keep going in that direction, or it's going to get you on track and they're going to take you off of it. So
Yeah.
accountability is a big piece of this leadership, the leadership piece that we're talking about tonight. If you are that type of leader where you feel like you don't have to be accountable to anyone because your idea is always right, you will not be a leader for much longer.
Yeah.
Period. But yeah, great points. Keep sending in your questions. We really want to get your feedback, because pretty soon we're going to be hitting our Q&A, and we're just going to open it up. Whatever is out there, we're going to let you say it, and
Yeah.
we're not going to take any offense to it. This is all about this is open talk. This is open talk about the development of you.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with us. We are only here to give you information, to give you our points of view about where you think you should be, or how we can even help you get there. But we're really looking for those great ideas that you have. Maybe it's from the past and it's helped you right now. Send them out here. They're still relevant if you're still sitting in a leadership position. So we're looking for it. We want to hear those comments.
Yeah. I love this. It's been a great talk. I love the what you were talking about earlier about different things. Different things work or don't work. The
Yes.
idea that we're always thinking about, okay, what is working, what is not working, what do we need to adjust? No different in this moment. It's a lot more than we're
Mm-hmm.
used to.
Right.
At the same time, it's okay. What works, what doesn't work. Who I am in this moment. Who do I want to be moving forward?
Yes.
And it
Yes.
might take several iterations, particularly in the aspect of culture. It's like, okay, we're going to be moving in this direction, and then things might change, or we might decide that we need to make some changes and some tweaks along the way to get
Absolutely.
to where we want to go. So we have to have great clarity as to where it is that we want to go. When we cross that finish line, what does that look like? When we get to
Mm.
the end goal, what does the end goal look like? What's the end goal? Have that in mind.
Yes.
That'll help us get to the destination. An airplane over 90% of the time is off course, but the
Yes.
pilot's job is to put the plane back on course, so it lands at the right place at the right moment. And often
Yes.
ahead of schedule. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and so as people, we may have to do that as well. We may have to make little course adjustments along the way. And to be truthful, we've been doing that all our lives.
Absolutely.
We've been living that
Absolutely.
all our lives. We've been making course corrections since we were born.
That is a great point, Manny. I think you probably hit it right on the nail. People don't understand that. I love it when people come and tell me, "Well, I'm not a leader." Yes, you are. They be like, "Well, no." I say, "Okay, you go to church?" Yes. I say, "So what do you do in church?" "Oh, I love. I'm in charge of this, and I'm." Well, guess what? You're a leader. It's people when most people hear leadership, they're thinking CEO or this big title. You can be the leader of the kids choir. You're the leader. they if someone is looking up to you because you are setting a great example, you are a leader, period. And you need to accept that role. And you know, one of those points that I often sit up here and reflect on is, what can I do to help somebody else out today?
Mm.
And because, Manny, if I come to you and say, what can I do to help you out today? And you say, well, Jimmy, I'm just really got this going on. Where you are short at, I may be strong. And now we just collaborated. That word, that other C. I thought, sorry, I'm just throwing all kinds of C's out at you tonight. We have collaborated on your idea to get you where. Guess what? You're looking at me like, wow, this dude actually know his stuff. I'm a leader. To you, I'm a leader. And it may shift into a mentorship role because you just think I'm just the bomb, but I'm just here to help you out to get where you want to go. Leadership. I'm a servant leader. I really do believe that. I kind of I jumped into the to studying that a little bit on advice of another colleague, and I said, yeah, I think I'm a servant leader because I believe in the power of the people. I do. I There is so much strength in numbers when everybody has what you was talking about earlier, that focus, them left and right limits. And I'm just there like, hey, you're going too far. Hey, you're going too far. We landing now. And I attribute that is, if you have vision, you a leader. Period, point blank. Because you see something, you want to get there. How can I bring others to help me get there? Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's why look. That's why I joined Shelly. She has vision.
Amen.
But
Yeah.
this has been a great talk, and I'm telling you all, please continue to send your comments. Continue to add value to this conversation because we're going to post it on Facebook. It's going to be there for eternity. And if we can get any veteran to come out here and just listen to it, spouse, or somebody just like, what is this page? You are going to, we are enhancing someone else's life right now. Put in your comments. We want the world to see what it is to live the life of a leader. Whether you're a veteran, whether you're, believe it or not, military spouses, you're a leader in your house because you can't, believe it or not, I have to remind you of that. You are in charge. But we like to hear those comments. It's very important that the world sees and values these comments that are being put here.
Yeah.
They're coming in so fast. I can't even keep up with them now. They're coming in so fast, which is good. Keep them coming. But we're going to go ahead and get ready to open it up for our Q&A. And this is now the free for all. This is your time to put in what you want to hear, or I think it's a good time, if we can, open it up and let them talk.
Yeah.
Share your experience if you feel that is what you want to do. But also, what makes you, what do you think, what got you here today? So it's open now. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
You
I
have Manny. Go ahead, Manny.
Yeah, no, I want to do so we had a question from Laura. So
Okay.
perhaps we could start with that, since it was in the chat box, like
See it.
right before we opened up the mic, just out of respect for that. Um,
Absolutely.
so she asked, do you ever feel that imposter phenomenon, the imposter syndrome? I've heard it called,
Oh,
like you're not qualified to do something like a position or
oh,
responsibility. And, how do you challenge that feeling? That a lot of people go through that. That
yes.
I've dealt with through that as well. As a brand new business owner, I mean, I started my business a little over a year ago, and often I felt that imposter syndrome because I was still on the job training. I was still learning how to go and visit and sit in front of business leaders, even though I sat down in front of colonels and generals and chiefs
Yes.
before, right?
Yes.
But I felt like a fake. Like I didn't
Mm,
belong in the room sometimes. So I've been there. I've been there, Laura. I would say for me, what helped me overcome that was a no. First of all, I needed to know who I was as a person.
absolutely.
Who am I? What do I stand for? What am I hoping to achieve as an individual? And in the aspect of my business, why am I in the business that I am in?
Absolutely.
I believe in what I do. And so the lack of perhaps I might lack some confidence in some areas because I'm still
Hmm.
learning it and still new at that. That's just a lack of confidence. But as I gain competence, I gain confidence. And the more confidence that I earn and build, then that frees me from having that doubt. And to me, that,
Absolutely.
that imposter syndrome, in my experience, goes back to perhaps an uneasiness in my confidence in my abilities. And so for me, I was like, okay, I sat down and I had a meeting with somebody. It didn't necessarily turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. Then I would go back and I would review what areas did I do well? What areas could I improve? I would posit to you that there are aspects of you that you do extremely well
Hmm.
because sometimes we are our worst critics. We tend to
Absolutely.
look those and put focus and attention on those areas that perhaps we're not very proud of or not as confident about. And to be fair, many people don't even notice. They don't even know. But we do
Absolutely.
because the self-talk in our head, we can hear that. They can't.
Absolutely.
So my experience has always been, what is it? Kind of try to narrow down what is it that is making me feel that, and is it a matter of is it a something I need to learn? Is it a confidence issue here? Do I have the right competence? And then I can work on that. And it is a work in progress. I would also say that depending on where you are in your life or in your career,
Absolutely.
you might revisit that. It's like, okay, yeah, when I became a chief, um, just kind of go back to those years. My first year, the environment I worked in made me feel a little bit self-conscious about who I was, and sometimes I felt like a fraud because I never quite felt I was part of that culture in that organization. But then
Right.
I came here to Joint Base Lewis McChord, and I found that no, I was okay. It was just an opportunity for me to learn a little bit about me, and then I was able to flourish here. In a way,
Absolutely.
I'm almost thankful that I had that year of uncertainty because it helped
Yes.
me reflect and go, okay, who do I want to be? How do I want to serve?
Absolutely. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to eat into your time. So if you got questions or you want to make a comment, the mic is, E did a great job of unmuting you so you can talk to us. We want to hear you now. Do we have any takers? Oh, so the first part of growth is stepping out your comfort zone. Stepping out your comfort zone. No questions. Okay, and that's fine. If you feel like you want to pop in, just pop in. Um, one of the Manny hit some great points that he talks about. I've had those same conversations with many veterans out in the field, leaving their comfort zone into the uncomfort of this world. But I think, Laura, you had a very valid point about being uncomfortable. But you know what? You were uncomfortable when you went to basic training. I love the basic training one because everybody can relate to basic training because we all had to go through it to get to this part of our military career where we're now retired or separated or whatever. But you have been uncomfortable before. The problem, just like Manny said, is we are so focused on the structure of things, and we knew that we could excel at these things that now we being placed into a point of, I don't know this. You actually think I knew HR in the civilian world when I got out? Absolutely not. And I shared this with Manny. The only reason I got in HR and have excelled as much as I did because people kept telling me that's not possible. It's two different types of worlds. They don't talk to each other. I just talked to two veterans this week and explained to them how their skill sets translate over into the civilian world. And do you know the you can just hear this. Oh man, Jimmy, I feel so much better now. Laura, you got the exact same thing going on. You have to like Manny said, you have to know you and what you're capable of and stop focusing on the military aspect of you, but the holistic part of you. You are so much more than your rank and your title. You are so much more. And I remind people of that. Manny has pretty sure has said that to many people as well. You are more than your rank. You are more than your title. You are more than what you think you are. If you are a housewife or a spouse, or you're transitioning from one job to another and you're afraid of, oh, if I hit this door, who you're scared that they're going to see all the bad stuff. But like Manny said, most of the time they don't even pay attention to it unless you highlight it. You go in and be as we're talking about it in this world now is your authentic self. That's what's most important. And then we're going to focus on the other C that I threw out at Manny tonight, the connection piece, because when you are authentic, you begin to connect, which helps your communications, which speeds up your change for your culture. Love that. Tie them all together. But that's what it's all about. That's what this program is designed to help you do. Focus on leadership during this very disturbing time that we're going through, keeping you focused on the most important piece, which is yourself. If you are a leader of teams, your team. If you have a small business, you're managing your business and you have stakeholders that are involved. All of this is reflective somewhere in your life so we can help you be better. So this has been one great talk. Really enjoyed Manny. Manny, since you interviewed me tonight, I'm going to let you close out.
Jimmy, thank you for being on my show. No, gosh, you know what? What a wonderful time to be together to talk about, leadership, to talk about the things that matter to us. I want to before I guess I turn it over back to you, so you can close it. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank Shelley Willis. I want to thank Eve, who's our hands, our
I know,
ears,
right?
making everything work. I want to share a couple of things with you that I provided to Eve. So you might see it on an email, or she might populate that into your chat box. So don't log off just yet. Just a couple of resources that I want to share with you as a thank you for being here. And the first one is next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Crestcom International is hosting a 3-day webinar series it's called Reimagine Your Tomorrow. We are bringing in a host of leadership experts that are internationally known. These are people like Steve Farber, people like Mark Sanborn, Andy Bounds. They're on the New York Times bestseller lists. They have
Nice.
they have blogs and information on leadership, and many of the things that we incorporate into Crestcom's program come from these wonderful people. And we've brought them in to do a 3-day webinar series absolutely free.
That's awesome.
So I provided that flyer. You should be receiving that flyer. And inside that flyer are the embedded links where you can sign up. So every day has a different sign up. Please sign up. Please take advantage of this if you can, because this is going to be fantastic. These are individuals that we were able to grab a hold of during 3 days because of COVID. They're not as busy. So we were able to put this workshop together. It's going to be fantastic. And then the second thing that I want to share with you is I want to share with you our Crestcom brochure. It covers what our leadership development program looks like, what our 12-month program looks like. I'd love for you to look at it so you're familiar with what we're doing. And if for some reason you want to learn more about what we do and what kind of resources I can provide to you, I'd be happy to talk with you. If you know of people who could benefit from our program, organizations, maybe you work for a team that might need some help in leadership areas, and you want to find a way to provide a structure for that, I'd be happy to share that with you. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I will, yeah, so I'll send it to Eve so then she can provide that to you via email, guys. This is my thank you to you for being part of our presentation today. Again, thank you. I'm going to turn it over back to Jimmy.
Manny, you get so many comments. This is crazy. But I do want to say thank you for attending this presentation tonight. We had an awesome time. I think this has been I think hopefully you got something out of it for you and how you can apply it in your life moving forward. So we appreciate you. We appreciate your viewership. We appreciate your comments. We just adding knowledge to what is already there so we can just continue to grow. So with that said, this is one great night and we're going to wrap it up. This is Redefining You Foundation. Thank you for attending. We will be matter of fact, let me remind you, next Wednesday. We have one coming up next Wednesday. So I hope to see you there because I will be there. So thank you for attending. We will talk with you later. Have a great evening. Redefining You Foundation.
Thanks, everybody.